It's my great pleasure and honor to be here with my dear friend and hero, Paul Shapiro, the Vice President of Policy at the Humane Society of the United States.
Rabbi, so great to be with you, my man. Always makes me happy to see you.
Thank you, thank you. Just a few questions today here in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. First question for you is, what are some recent developments? What are some recent wins we've had that we can celebrate?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of people who have very raw emotions over this last election. Some people are very upset. Quite frankly, other people are quite euphoric. But there is an issue that really everybody ought to be able to agree on. And it seemed in this election like the treatment of farm animals was that issue. So, for example, in Massachusetts, voters there considered Question 3. It's a ballot measure statewide that, if enacted, would make this state the first to prohibit the extreme confinement of farm animals in tiny cages and to ban the sale of products from extremely confined animals regardless of where they were produced. Massachusetts voters overwhelmingly passed Question 3. 78% of them passed Question 3. That means that virtually every single town in the entire state, every county in the state, every congressional district in the state overwhelmingly voted in favor of it. The counties that voted big on Trump, the counties that voted big on Clinton, all favored Question 3. So what does that mean? It really means that compassion for animals is not a partisan issue. This is something that's not even bipartisan, it's really nonpartisan. In fact, if you look at the states that have voted on farm animal protection ballot measures, you've got swing states like Florida, red states like Arizona, blue states like California and now Massachusetts, and all of them by double digits have passed these farm animal protection measures. And so to me, that sends a strong signal. Similarly, while Massachusetts, of course, is one of the bluest states in the country, in the same election, in one of the most beat red states, Oklahoma, a state that voted by huge margins for Donald Trump, more than 60% of Oklahoma voters voted to reject a right to farm ballot measure, really what should be called right to harm. What it is a measure that would have prevented future lawmakers or voters from regulating agribusiness. They have essentially have a blank check to do whatever they wanted. And there, by a huge margin, again, over 60% Oklahoma voters said no. So at the state level on ballot measures for animals, it was a pretty good election cycle.
So lots of changes with the elections, but also it sounds very positive that there should be few implications for animals, since this ought to be, and in many ways is, a nonpartisan issue. So one of the things I'm excited about is the clean meat, the clean meat movement.
Yeah, me too.
And not only from a kosher perspective and the accessibility for Jews, but also just for the potential to eliminate massive amounts of suffering. So tell us a little bit about where that's at and where you see that going.
Well, for those who aren't familiar with it, clean meat is essentially meat that is real. It is not like a veggie burger. This is real meat that is produced outside of the animal. It's amazing. So think about it.
Yeah.
We can right now
Yeah.
take a cell, a microscopic cell, just a tiny little cell from an animal through a non-invasive biopsy, and then grow real animal muscle that is anatomically identical to real meat and produce it. I've eaten it myself. There are more humans who have been
How'd it taste?
I've been a vegan for 23
Right,
years, so
right,
I may not be the best judge, but it tasted good to me.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
At the same time, there's more humans who have been to the International Space Station than have eaten this clean meat, and I'm proud to be one of them. But think about it. We once were so reliant on whales to light our homes. Whale oil lit most of our civilization. And it wasn't until kerosene was invented and patented that we were able to stop harpooning whales. Similarly, horses used to do almost all of our manual labor.
Right.
And it wasn't humane sentiment that freed horses, it was the invention of the car. And so it's possible that this new technology of clean meat that is so much safer than the conventional meat because you don't have the same pathogens, like E. coli and Salmonella, which keep in mind are intestinal pathogens, no intestines at all here, that it's possible that could do the same thing. That it could help reduce our reliance on chickens and turkeys and pigs and cattle and fish and other animals by producing the same products without all of the cruelty and in a much more efficient way. Right now we're growing these animals. We're feeding them so they can breathe and have bones and eyeballs, all these things that we don't really need that much because we just want the milk, or we just want the eggs, or we just want the meat. And yeah, they're byproducts, but those don't have that much economic value compared to the primary products. With this, though, we can have huge efficiencies. In fact, one published study on the topic found that producing meat this way would use 99% less land, 80% fewer greenhouse gases, 45% the energy usage. It's truly incredible. It could solve so many big problems. And these companies are not science fiction. They're science fact. They're producing it now. We've produced hamburgers, meatballs. The first turkey nuggets were just produced last month. And so they're going to be coming online, hopefully being commercialized within the next few years. And for leather and milk and eggs, maybe even sooner than that.
Right. So in addition to purchasing these when they're available, how can folks start supporting this movement now?
Sure. So there are two nonprofit organizations that are devoted to promoting this type of technology. One is called the Good Food Institute. The other is called New Harvest. And both of them are working feverishly to advance what we call cellular agriculture. That is the next phase of the green revolution, to not go big, but rather to go small and see how we can use the cells, whether milk or eggs or meat or leather, and produce meat that way. So is it possible that one day a slaughter plant will seem as antiquated as a whaling ship? Or that a factory farm might seem as quaint as a horse-drawn carriage? It might be.
So lastly, as a passionate and committed Jew yourself, I wondered how the Jewish tradition has informed or inspired some of this work for you also.
Well, for me, it has animated my thoughts on the topic. I mean, when I was going to Hebrew school as a little kid, I remember learning about why the Talmud says that we must feed our animals before ourselves. And as I was going through my bar mitzvah and then confirmation, and I minored in religion in college as well, while majoring in peace studies, and I realized that many of the first laws prohibiting cruelty to animals were in the Hebrew scriptures. And so for me, this is something that I have really internalized. And when I read about Amos, for example, talking about how justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream, to me, that is part of the social justice tradition in which I see animal protection, that we must be concerned for the vulnerable, regardless of if the vulnerable are different from us. Oftentimes in history, Jews have been the vulnerable ones, and in some places in the world, that's still the case today. But many other groups, including animals, are also vulnerable. We hold all the power in the equation with them. We can do to them whatever we want. They can't really fight back against us. We can torture them, we can kill them, we can exterminate them, we can cause them to go extinct. And with great power comes great responsibility. And so for me, when I think about not just a prophet like Amos, but even a prophet like Isaiah, he talks about the wolf lying down with the lamb. To me, we are the wolf. And it's time for us to embrace a more peaceful relationship with our fellow creatures on this planet who have committed no crime. They've done nothing to deserve the type of torment that we inflict on them. And for me, what I would like to see is that truly humane society, that peaceful vision of Isaiah of the peaceable kingdom, where we view our fellow creatures on this planet not as existing simply for us, but rather existing with us. It's kind of like how Copernicus and Galileo helped us to understand that we aren't the center of the physical universe. And I would suggest that many people are now recognizing perhaps we're not the center of the moral universe either. Maybe we ought to have a slightly humbler view of ourselves and recognize that, yeah, there are many great things about us and many great accomplishments that we've had, not to take away from that. But our relationship with the other animals ought not be one that's based just on violence and domination. It ought to be based on compassion and respect. And the animal protection movement, which has a disproportionate number of Jews compared to our general population numbers, I think is helping to lead toward that day.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, Maimonides argued against Sadyago and really all the philosophers of the medieval time that the human was not the center of existence. It was not an anthropocentric philosophy, you know, in Judaism, and that rather we are simply a part of the system and have sacred responsibilities in that system.
That's fascinating. I'd love to learn more about it. And I'll end on a quote from one of my favorite writers, Isaac Bashevis Singer, when he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and he was asked, Mr. Singer, are you a vegetarian for health reasons? And he said, yes, for the health of the chicken.
Beautiful, beautiful. So follow Paul Shapiro, follow the Humane Society. They're doing amazing stuff. Try to get on his weekly email list if you can. Follow him on social media. And I am so grateful in my work with Shemayim Va'aretz. We have learned so much and been supported so much by your work, and are so grateful for your partnership. So I wish you so much continued success.
My
in your
man.
work. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.